In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create a Mosaic dataset, add thematic rasters to it, and then have a single band 1-bit output that you can use as a mask across platforms when working with other rasters elsewhere. So those platforms could be anything from R to QGIS to ERDOS Imagine or Envy, whatever program that you're working with. I'll also do some basic steps like adding folder connections to where my data is located and where I want to work from. Create file geodatabases so you can fast forward if you please. So now I check the connection I just made. Yes, I have the two thematic rasters I'm going to add to the Mosaic dataset. First, I want to create a file geodatabase to work from. So we have that there. Now we're going to add these two to the map pane. All right, so now let's go to the tools. You can search for the tools here. I always like to go to the toolboxes, especially if I'm learning a new thing, in order to understand how the tools are arranged and how they are logically pinned together. So if we want to create a new Mosaic data set, we'd go to the tool named just that. So where do we want it? Let's put it in that geodatabase that we just created. And what are we going to title it? So we have that. Coordinate system wise, we want to choose something that we're sure is going to align with the layers we're going to put into it. And that's something important to check, especially if you're putting 10, 20, 30, 100 different rasters into a single Mosaic data set. So the number of bands we want to set to 1. And the type we're going to also set to single bit. And if you're using something like where you hope that the output contains quite a few different classes or is continuous, you'd want probably an 8-bit signed or maybe even up to 16-bit depending on the data that you're working with. So we'll give that a run. Okay, so you can see here our Mosaic data set has been created. And now we want to do something that's pretty important, and that is go to the Mosaic dataset's properties in the catalog window and ensure that the compression methods are set to either none or LZ77. And also, if we're using thematic rasters going into the Mosaic dataset, we want to ensure that it has a resampling method set for that. So let's use nearest neighbor, which is for discrete data, not for continuous data. Thematic being discrete. So you can check around there and see if there's anything else you need to update, but that's good enough for our needs. And then, we also want to double check and make sure that that did come out as a raster with 1 band, and it's also in 1 bit. As far as source type, we can go to thematic here. So we should be good to go from there. Hit OK. And now we want to add our rasters into this Mosaic data set. So in order to do that, we go back to the toolbox, and you can scroll right back up to the top here. Add rasters to the Mosaic data set. Which Mosaic data set are we going to use? The one we just created. Yes, it is the type raster data set. That's what's going to go into it. And the input data is going to be a data set. So let's go now and we can access the two rasters here. Hit OK. As far as advanced input options, we don't have any auxiliary data to enter. We're not working with subfolders. It's always a good idea to calculate statistics and build raster pyramids. It doesn't matter so much for a single band raster, thematic raster especially, but especially when you're working across platforms, going into R or back over to Q or whatever, or ERDOS Imagine in particular, it's good to have pyramids associated with your raster layers and also calculate statistics. So we'll go ahead and do that. So you can see here that what we get is a raster in our Mosaic data set. We can even turn these off now, and you'll notice that this has 5 values to it. And if we zoom in on our area, you can see that these 5 values are going to be the same as these here. So what you'll see here too is there's 5, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different classes. So that's good news. Now in this method, pixels can retain multiple values. If there's 2 pixels that overlay, those pixels can be represented as multiple values. What we get out of it is something we can use as a mask, and there's a couple different ways to export this into its own raster. We can either go here into export raster, or we can go back over to copy raster, and that is, we go to raster dataset. So we have, this is our new raster we want to copy into something new. So let's just title this Mosaic Dataset, and then if we want to use it as a mask, we'll title it mask. We don't want to convert 1 bit to 8-bit, and then we can again ensure that that's that. We don't need to change the format for this. If we were working in another program that required specific formats, or we wanted to align our formats with other rasters we're going to use down the road, we could change that. But so what that outputs here is a Thematic Raster single band 1 bit. So let's look at the properties, ensure that's the case. Number of bands 1, source type thematic, and depth 1 bit. Compression type was LZ77. All that's good there. We now have this raster. We can run it as a mask in different platforms, different software, whatever you please. And I hope that video is useful for you. Let me know if you have any questions or how to do anything with rasters going forwards. Thanks.